How you going, guys? Kurtis from Cutting Edge Engineering. So today's job, we're going to be ticking off another workshop project. We're going to be making some custom bins for the workshop. So what I've been using is two 44-gallon drums with the tops cut out of them for our general rubbish. And the problem with that is the bins can get quite heavy depending what's in them. And then when I go to tip them into our big commercial waste bin, it can be quite difficult to climb up on the side of the forklift or the bin to empty them out. And for our swarf, I do have a small tipping bin, but that fills up pretty quickly. It is quite small. So we've cleaned all the swarf out of our little lathe and that bin has already filled up, and we haven't even cleaned out the bigger machines yet. Cleaning out those, I'm probably going to have to empty that bin about 6 times. And that is a lot of wasted time and a lot of trips back and forth to our scrap bin. And sometimes when I go to empty that into the big scrap bin, it falls off and winds up in there with everything else.
I was hoping it would fall in.
So I'm sick of those. The new bins we're going to be making are going to be forkliftable and much easier to empty because the bottom opens up. So like all my workshop projects, I have an idea in my head. I'm not really following any plans. So I got Troy to draw up some parts. We had them cut and pressed. I've got a few other bits and pieces, but we're just going to make this work. So I've got enough parts to make 3 bins. Obviously we're going to be using one for rubbish and one for swarf, and the other one will be used for whichever bin fills up first. So because the bins are going to be square, we weren't able to have them made out of one piece. Because there is interference issues when they do go to press them, we had to make it out of 2. So the first thing I'm going to do is tack on this final sheet, which will complete the shape of the bin. In standard Kurtis fashion, I did make these pretty overkill. The plate is quite thick. We have 3mm sides and a 5mm bottom. So now with those tacked in place, I'm going to cut the angle line that goes around the perimeter of the top of the bin. So not only is that going to offer support, that is also going to be where the forklift picks it up from. So I'll be using 50 by 50 by 5mm equal angle, and I have 12 pieces to cut, 6 at 700mm and 6 at 600mm. So now with those cut, we're just going to fit them and tack them in place. So with all the angle line welded on top, we're going to flip them over, fit the base plates and tack on the hinges. And the bottom plates are being cut and pressed out of 5mm plate. The reason for that is to just offer a bit more resistance when we're dropping heavy stuff into the bins. So the hinges I'm going to be using, they are an offcut off a heavy duty piano hinge I've had laying around from when I used to build truck bodies. So we're just going to get one tacked on and see how that looks and functions. So I'm happy with how that works. I'm just going to put a few more tacks on the inside to help support it and then cut off the excess. So with that one done, we're going to get the other two up to the same stage. So unfortunately this last hinge is about 50mm too short. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use one of the offcuts that I've got. I'm going to join that onto the end of the hinge just to complete it. So that's the main body of the bins tacked together. Now we're going to get on to fitting the locks.
Really? What are you doing?
Drop it. Drop it. Good boy. Go on your bed.
So the locking mechanism is made up of a few parts. We have a pin that is mounted to the front of the bin. Attached to that are two locking plates. Those locking plates then go over two pins that are welded onto the bottom of the bin. So before we can start assembling the locking mechanism, I do need to machine up some bosses, which will hold the pin on the front of the bin. So to make the bosses, I'm going to be using a scrap piece of cylinder rod. This is 38mm in diameter and it is 1045 chrome bar. So the first thing I'm going to do is just face this end to clean it up. Now I'm going to mark my parting off length and chamfer the edges. So before I part it off, I just need to center drill and drill a 20mm hole to depth. So that's our first one done. I just need to make 5 more. So now with all the bosses made, all I need to do is cut the material I'll be using for the pins. I'm going to be repurposing some scrap cylinder rods that I've been saving. So I need to cut 3 lengths to go across the front of the bin, and then 6 shorter pieces, which the locking plates will go over. So now with all those made, we can start assembling the locking mechanism. now we're going to fit the rest of the assembly, tack it in place and check our clearances. So that's just a little bit on the tight side. I'm just going to knock the bosses up a little bit to allow room for the plates to come off those pins. So I'm pretty happy with that. It is a little bit on the tight side, but when I go to weld this, things are going to move. After it's been welded, I can then make adjustments by grinding out the inside of those plates. So these are really starting to come together now. There's just a couple of other things I need to do before I weld them out, and that is cut and tack on the angle line that goes on the bottom of the bin so it doesn't sit on the ground. And we also need to fabricate up some handles and tack them in place so you can open the bottom of the bin standing beside it. So I was just about to tack the handles onto the latch, but I'm not entirely happy with how they look. There isn't a great deal of clearance beside the bin and the handle, so I'm going to press an offset into them. So it just steps them out a little bit, which will make them look a bit better and make them easier to use. So I've got those pressed. I'm also just going to grind a radius on one end and put a weld prep on it. So really happy with how those turned out. They got a lot more functionality now. There's a bit of room between the handle and the bin itself. So that's everything tacked on. Now we can go through and weld them out. You just throw it back at me? Leave my scrap alone.
This just arrived.
Oh, yeah. Look at that. Sick. Professional now.
Your welding skills just went through the roof. Oh, that's sick.
Very nice. So what I'm going to be using to weld these out is just standard ER70S6 backed up with Argo Shield Universal. So I will be welding this downhand, which means I am going to have to flip this, but that is the most comfortable way of doing it, especially using a solid wire. So I'm just going to weld what I can downhand, then I'll just flip it over. So most of the welding I need to do is just stitch welding. There is no need to fully weld the angle line or the hinges on, but I will fully weld the seams where the two sheets join. Righto, so they're fully welded out. They took about 25 minutes each. There's just a few things I need to do before I can paint them. I need to clean up the spatter with the wire wheel, use the grinder to take off all the sharp edges. I need to drill some holes to fit the springs to hold the latches closed. Righto guys, so I've got everything ground down, everything's nice and smooth. I also had to grind a little bit off the face of the locking plate, just because I've welded it, a lot of things have moved. The last thing I need to do is drill some holes in the latch system to attach some springs so it holds them closed. So that's our first bin completely assembled. We're going to get this one outside, get the springs fitted to the other two, and then we can paint them.
Okay, that's enough. That's enough. On your bed.
So this might upset a few people, but I'm not going to be priming the bins. They are going to spend most of their life in the workshop, so they're not going to be outside in the weather. They are going to get scratched and they are going to get bumped into, so I don't see the point in priming them. So we're just going to go in with a coat of blue paint, which is the same color we paint all of our projects. Righto guys, so we got all the bins painted. That only took about 15 minutes. I did get a few runs here and there, but that's just added abrasion protection. So I'm really happy with how these have turned out, but we're going to let them dry overnight, then we can put them to the test. So I'm just going to use my crane to move the bin into the machining area. I purposely didn't put wheels on them because wheels don't last in a machine shop. The swarf gets stuck in the wheels and just tears them apart. So you could use steel wheels, but they generally damage the floor and it only takes a little bit of swarf to stop them from moving. But craning it is far easier because I can put the bin wherever I want to, and it is very easy to maneuver around the machinery. So we generally don't let the lathes get this full of swarf, but we did have a couple of big jobs back to back that were quite urgent. So we just work through them and then we clean the machines when we're done. So that's our lathe cleaned out and our bin is filled up, but that only took one bin to do it. So I'm going to chuck the scales on this just to see how much material's in it. So before we filled it, the bin on its own weighed 85 kilo, and now that it's full, it weighs 380. So that's 295 kilo of material. And now we're going to go dump it in our scrap bin. So that didn't take very much effort at all, and it is very effective. The door just drops and all the material falls out. We can go back and fill it again. Righto guys, so that's another project ticked off our list. We've got our workshop bins made. Not only are they heavy duty, but they are going to save a lot of time, and it is much safer emptying these rather than climbing up on the bin. I can do it all from standing on the ground. So now that I've built and tested these, there wouldn't be a great deal I would change on them if I had to make them again. I might put a longer handle on them, and that would only be to give more leverage to opening the bottom if I was putting heavier items in the bin. Something else, if I had apprentices or employees here, I would definitely put a safety chain on them so they couldn't lose them off the forklift. But the reason we made the bins the size they are is because my forklift tines lock at 610mm between them, so it picks up the bin perfectly and there's no chance of those tines spreading out and dropping the bin. So there are workshop bins that have the bottom fall out that you can buy, but they are about $2,500 and they are about 3 times the size of these. So they are substantially bigger and they're not suitable for a machine shop like mine where I do have tight areas to work in around machines. So for about 5 hours work and about $900 in material to build all 3 of these are going to be a great investment. So I hope you enjoyed watching this project and this build, but there is one more thing that I need to do. Thanks for watching. How you going, guys? Kurtis from Cutting Edge Engineering. So today's job, we're getting another workshop project. Oh, fuck me. Work chop. So at the moment, I'm using 44-gallon drums with the tops cut out of them as bins. But the problem with that is climbing up on the forklift to empty them into a bin is quite dangerous, and depending what material's in the bin, it can be quite hard to do because the bin's very heavy. I also have a small tipping bin that I use in the machining area for swarf. 9 times out of 10 when I go to empty that, the bin ends up in the big bin.
Whoa. Too much bin being said at the moment.
Are you recording already?
I'm recording now, yes.
Right. How am I starting it? So with the angle... Words. Next thing we're going to do is hit everything with... Oh, hit everything. So really happy with how they turned out. They're nice. Nice. I'm going to go around with the grinder and knock down all the sharp edges and make everything nice and smooth. So just cleaning the swarf out of the small... What?
Swarf.
Did I say swarf? So we've cleaned the swarf, I said it again. So with all the angle line tapped on the top. So with all the angle line it's in the can. So with that done.
Oh, Jesus.
There you go. But I will be fully welding the seams with the 2 short...
That's for you.
So I will be welding... Fuck off, cockatoo.
Oh, is that someone here? Someone trying to ring.
Hey mate, what's happening?
Really?
Hey mate, how are you? Happy there, bro?
Just stay there for a second.
Yep. Should plug this in.
You cannot follow directions. Oh my god. Oh, right. Oh, there's a clamp there.
Oh, fucking earth clamp.
What the hell?
Fucking dog.
You're probably stoked with that.
I got it. Oh.
Just bend the corner.
Oh, I peeled the backing apart.
Oh my god, stop.
Creased it.
Oh. What are you doing? Oh my lord, oh my gosh. That just, oh Jesus Christ.
Whee! Okay.